So we've got our text boxes, and what you want to do is really you just want to, with your text tool, go in and select each paragraph of text. And the way I like to do that is copy them or select it and then edit, cut. It removes it from here, and then I can copy and paste it into here. And then the same for this Apple or Command X on a Mac. We'll cut that. Command V will paste it. Command X. Click inside my text box. Command V. Command X. Command V. Command X. Command V. And then down here, I can go ahead and type in my title of my book and the author. Alright, so I've got all my text in here. And now what you want to do is, text has kind of an inherent texture to it based on just the way it's created. The lines that make up letters, the curves that make up letters, slants, whether a font has serifs or is an unserifed font. A serifed font is something like Times, where you've got these small feet at the tops and bottoms of verticals, and these little flourishes. Those are serifs. A sans serif font would be something like Helvetica, where you don't have those little feet, I guess, for lack of a better term. What you're going to do is you're going to settle on one font for this assignment. It can be either, you can use Helvetica, or you can use Times or Times New Roman. But that is the only font you can't use. You can't use anything other than one of those two fonts. So what I'll do is I'll select, actually I should be able to select all those boxes. Let's see if it'll let me. And then in my character dialog box, or my character palette, which if you don't see it, you can click on Window and type in Tables, Character, and type in Helvetica, and go to Helvetica Regular. And that will go ahead and change all those boxes to Helvetica. Now for Dracula, I think it's probably not modern enough for Helvetica, so just as a design choice, I think I'm going to use instead Times Regular. And there I go. Now what I want you to do is basically you're going to learn how to use all the different typesetting tools in design. And what that means is I want you to think about recreating shapes with text rather than thinking these as just lines of text and a bunch of words. Think of them in terms of shape and even contrast. And what I want you to start doing is, if you select with your selection tool one box and go to the character palette, just kind of start playing around with the different ways to manipulate text copy. This is the font size. You click and can increase or decrease the font as much as you want. Now on this next click here, you'll see this little red box with a plus appear. That means text has flowed outside the boundaries of this box, which means I can click and drag and make that box bigger and pick up that text, or I can shrink the text back down. And I'm going to do the same with this guy here. And just to kind of make it fill, I want to see if I can just increase that font enough to make it fill that block, or very closely fill that block. Okay, the same with this one. And this is just a little bit of text in a great big box. So we have to increase the size of this quite a bit to even come close to filling that. Okay. The same here. Let's go ahead and fill that. with this title one. So kind of what I've done is I've created these blocks, and by filling that, increasing the font size to fill that block, I've more or less created shapes. If you kind of zoom out and squint with your eyes, you can see those kind of reduced to shapes rather than text. So that's one way you can kind of start to look at this. Something else you can do is, if you look down the side, these are aligned to the left, which means this line running down the left is straight all the way down, and on the right you'll see these jagged lines. That's basically an unaligned or unjustified text. It's called ragged right, and that's when these words don't align, unlike the words on the left. The way you can adjust that, and we'll get into justification quite a bit, is select your type tool. You'll notice the change in the toolbar up at the top. You've got this box selected. With that selected, if you click on, I'll just go through these all real quickly, align center, you can see that it aligns the text down the center of the box. Align to the right will set the right side in alignment, and you'll have a ragged left. Below that, you've got justify with last line on, or with last line aligned on the left. If you do that, now you'll see that both sides are aligned at the sides. Center will do the same, except the bottom line will center up. And justify all lines means that all lines will be stretched to fill the entire box. So if you can do that with all of them, you again can start to see that these become more like shapes rather than blocks of text. Okay, it's a way of kind of creating these ideas of these rectangular shapes. Now, once you've got that, you can kind of start moving these around back with the selection tool and kind of move those around a little bit and work on your composition and start to tweak that and maybe try to get a little bit better layout. Now, what you can also do is, just because you put these in one place to begin with doesn't mean they have to stay. So if you decide you've got one of these that you want to be really the main focus of the piece, one block of text, then that's probably the one you want to work with first and build around that. So this block of text that starts with, again, the operation, again, the narcotic, again, some return of color, that I kind of want to be my main block of text. So I want that to have the most visual weight in the document. And visual weight is the emphasis, the amount of emphasis an element has, how much attention it calls to itself. So I want this block to have the most amount of visual weight. So one way I can do that, again, is to start to really increase that font size and also increase the size of this text block. So I'll do that, and you'll see the larger that becomes, the more it kind of calls attention to itself when I zoom out a little bit. Now, something else I can do to give that a little more weight is I can go in and start to change the spacing between the letters in the font. Okay, the way I want to do that is with this text block selected, I'll go to the tracking, and tracking is basically the spacing between the words and the letters in this box. And if I start to zoom or click this down, you'll see that all of the letters start to close up and the spaces between the words start to close up. And they become much more compact. And what that does, it kind of creates a difference in the texture or the visual weight of that box. They start to become more of a solid form. So you can adjust the tracking and kind of close those letters in. You can also go the opposite direction. And this little block of text here, if I go in and increase the tracking, I can start to space that out. And then I can change the font back down. and I can start to get a different feel for the texture. As you see here, these, as these words begin to, as the characters begin to space further apart, I get a different look and a different texture than when they're pulled close together. So that's a way to change that. Again, if I want more visual weight to this block, I can then start to adjust the leading. And the leading is the space between the lines, between the baseline of each line. The baseline being this line right here that a letter without a descender, which is like the letter P has a descender and the G has a descender. The baseline is where letters sit in the line of text. And the leading is the space between the baseline. So I can close that up by clicking here and start to pull that closer. And again, that becomes more of a solid shape as opposed to this one. If we go ahead and increase the leading, and we'll just even move this guy here. So we're going to kind of play around. This is what you're going to be doing the entire assignment, is just playing around with these blocks of text and seeing how you can kind of create some visual texture with them and some areas of even contrast. And really it's all an adjustment between the type, the font size, the leading, and the tracking are really probably the main ways you're going to experiment with this. So there you can see we've created this almost a gray tone compared to this. If you look at those, and you can see this from a distance feels more like a solid black, and this feels more like a gray. And again, we're creating texture, and we're also kind of creating value with this. So what you can do is, for this assignment, you will basically be composing your piece basically by just adjusting and playing with these different fonts or typesetting tools. Another one that's going to be good to try is, so with this guy, this block of text here, I'll increase that a little bit, but on the character palette, if you go here to this little menu or the drop down arrow, you've got the option of doing all caps, and that again changes the visual weight of this little block of text. That's a pretty big change in just the way that reads visually between that, and that's just really one simple click. So that is all caps, and there you go. And so we'll take another block here and we'll start to scale down and play around. And this one, maybe I'll leave its justification or alignment to the right and see what that does. And then scale that down, and maybe it creates a line here on this side that I can kind of use to direct the eye. I'll scroll this in a little bit and just kind of play around with that, and again play around with leading and the tracking, and maybe that fills this space really well. So in the end, after some time playing with all these different typesetting tools, and really what you're going to want to do is make sure you've got the character palette open, and you want to experiment with font size, experiment with leading, and tracking are the main three you're going to want to use there. And again, to do any of these, all you need to do is have the text block selected. You don't have to have any text selected. So just get your selection tool, click a box, and adjust away. Now if you want to change the alignment or the justification, you'll need to select your text tool and then just click on your text box to make sure it's selected, and you can change all of that because these are single paragraphs that you've pasted in there. So you can kind of play around with those. And again, what you would end up with at the end, after you've finished and done probably several different variations of this and spent a good amount of time trying to come up with something that looks good and that you feel looks balanced and like a complete piece, you would end up with something like this. and I've still got my blue line around my boxes. If I go to the view or the view menu, extras, hide frame edges, that hides that, and I can see this is my finished composition. Where's that at? Object ungroup. Here it is. If I ungroup that and delete a couple of these, it starts to affect the way the overall composition looks. Okay, some of them are more important than others. If I take that one away, this really starts to feel heavy and unbalanced down here. If I take this one away, even more so. Okay, so what you want to do always is try to find a way to make all of these different elements work together, and be, I guess, considerate of where your main area of emphasis in your project is. So hopefully this gives you an idea of how to approach this assignment. Really, the main thing is, to think in terms of really simple shapes and how they lead the eye around the page, and think about, the texture created just by changing the spacing, the leading, the tracking, the size of all these fonts. You can create a lot of texture and a lot of value even. If you look at this, it reads almost like you've got several different values of black. And that's really, you're using the same font, but only changing, the way you've typeset it, each block. So that's this assignment. Hopefully you won't find it too difficult. I'll put up a little PDF with some reminders of how to use some of these different settings and the palette and everything, so you can, if you get stuck somewhere and need a refresher, you won't have to watch this whole video again. So this is the assignment. I hope you enjoyed. I like this one. It's a good way to kind of start to stretch your design ideas and start to get a handle on what we're doing with this class. We're really just thinking about things work together. So I suppose that's it, everyone. And as always, if you have any problems or questions about this assignment, just give me a yell, email, reach out to me, and I will help you as much as I can. Thanks.